And then it brings me on to, I'll group it as sort of the wider skills. And the obvious thing that always comes from that when you talk to employers and other people is, oh yeah, communications, teamwork, all those things. Yes, absolutely. And when I talk to young people, they say, oh, I don't do any sport, I don't do this. I said, teamwork can happen in lots of environments and lots of forums. You haven't got to be in the netball team, hockey team, football team. There's a whole load of things you do in and out of school that incorporate teamwork. But I also sort of, the more I talk to young people, those wider skills also developed into things like rigour. You know, especially girls going into engineering, that having that rigour to stick at it and go for it and become an engineer. You know, those kind of things have really sort of resonated with me a lot more now. And confidence, it sort of breeds confidence in being able to do what you do. And again, that's a whole nother conversation which probably we could talk a lot longer for. When a group of us had a chat last week, the third point is aspiration. And one of the things when I talk to young people a lot is their aspirations seem to be set quite low. And, you know, I know talking with us last week, we haven't just got quality employees in Cornwall, we've got world-class employees in Cornwall. And we're not just saying that because we're sat here, but it's true. You know, we've proved ourselves many times. And I think sometimes we undersell ourselves a little bit in Cornwall, but these young people should have aspirations of working for these organisations in Cornwall, because certainly from in my sector, in the marine sector, it's probably one of the sectors that's probably the least known about. We live in Falmouth, for goodness sake, you know, and it's something which I think is probably going to be changing as much, if not any more, you know, than some of these sort of more high-tech, well-known areas. But, you know, the boat design, you know, green energy, all those things, and it's these young people that are going to change that environment. So their aspirations have got to be set a lot higher. And the last point I really want to say is it's about choice. These young people need choice. They shouldn't have to be driven to go to, I don't know, an FE environment or whatever it is just because they go to a certain school. They should have choice.
So, I mean, just to echo that comment, aspiration is hugely important. I mean, one of the things that we try and do with a lot of local schools and colleges is just let people know that we're here. So once they know that you're there and that you're achievable, then you can start telling them the route of how to get there. But ultimately, if they don't see you as an option in their future, they're not going to be committed to taking the right sort of courses, the right sort of subject, the right sort of extracurricular. One of the ways I think we should achieve this more broadly is through business engagement. A lot of the creative discussion has been around business engagement, and I think it's absolutely critical. Simply because the business can actually give people real-world examples of what skills are required and how they'd be used in the workplace. So one of the things that we often come up against is we talk about the creative industry. So we make audio equipment. So the application of what we do is very creative. But actually, all the innovation for our products, that comes from the creativity of our engineers. It's not just creativity in the arts, it's creativity in science, it's creativity in engineering, creativity in manufacturing, optimizing business processes, new ways forward. And a lot of the time within academia, you're so stretched in terms of trying to teach so much. Well, for a business, we're only ever concerned with one thing, and that's making the product, making a sale, and obviously building a business. And actually, that's quite attractive to people. When you start talking to kids, they're completely au fait with the whole, yeah, we understand how businesses work, they've absorbed it. And we just essentially identify the route that they can take. I think it's incredibly important.
This framework that this Penryn pilot has developed is absolutely brilliant. I love the way it's so subject agnostic. It's all about what you do, how you apply yourself, how you show up. And I think, just to give you a pithy quote if you need one, the thing that I feel is missing most from education is actually the skills of oracy. People focus a lot on writing and conducting, those formal parts of education are obviously important, but the more that young people can articulate their ideas, test them with audiences, get feedback and represent them in a more kind of shaped up way, the more they're going to survive in the workforce.
A recent report said that 87% of creative roles are not at risk of AI automation. 87%. Now, I actually think it's broader than that, because the reality for us if somebody has the creative skills, the creative knowledge, they can adapt. They can be flexible. Things change, everything changes, industry changes, cultures change, technology changes. If you've got some of those creative skills, you can ride that through, you can adapt, you can influence that change. Actually, it's hugely beneficial to us. I mean, I'm not taking anything what you're saying about the English and the maths, IT skills, these things are absolutely core, but built into the English, built into the maths, built into this needs to be the creativity. Because as things change, you now have a pocket calculator, you now have this, you now have that. All the things that we were taught when we were young, actually a lot of them haven't held true, simply because everything changes. But the more creative you are, the more that you can adapt, the more that you can develop with things, then obviously you can make the best benefit of it. For us as an organisation, we want to be a Cornish company. We want to try and recruit locally. We don't always want to have to look internationally for people. So part of what we have decided to do is we'll do the projects with Penryn College, with the High School for Girls, with any of the local schools that are actually interested in working with us. Because by divvying up our time, giving them creative projects to work on, the things that are really practical, things that are very tangible, things that are sexy and exciting, like building their own little DJ mixer. Well, who wouldn't want to do that? But actually the skills that they're learning are absolutely invaluable. So that's why we buy into it.
If I... Sorry. Taylor doesn't have to stretch for her mind, does she? I'm going to pass this to Will, because I'm also aware that we've been talking about lots of subjects today. We've looked at creativity in English, we've looked at creativity in science, but this hierarchy, maybe questioning this hierarchy around English and maths, because we're proving, or we're exploring, that there is creativity right across our curriculum. I'm going to pass this back to Will around English, and why are you interested and investing time as a writer, as somebody within that industry, in this exploration?
The first session that I ever ran at the Writer's Block with young people, there was the young people came into the Writer's Block, which is quite an immersive space in which we teach different creative.
I think you have to go through a wardrobe, don't you?
You have to go through a wardrobe, yeah. So
you have to go through a wardrobe
like
to get in, which in terms of writing is quite extraordinary. You have to push past the coats.
And each of the young people introduced themselves to me, and there was one lad at the end. He said, "Don't worry about me." He said, "I'm not creative, and I don't really have anything to add here." He said, "It's okay. I'll just sit at the back, and it'll be fine." And I thought, "Well, I'm going to get you." And on the last session that we ran, this particular child lay down on the floor and cried. And he said, "I don't want to go," but he said, He said, I can do this. And I think so much of it is about recognising the creativity in our young people and working out ways to unlock that. It's not easy to measure. And I think one of the reasons that creativity is often overlooked within the curriculum is because it is more difficult to measure. It's more difficult to put a number against. But it doesn't make it any less important. Actually, those are the things that we're hearing from the panel are really important when we're sending young people out into the world. So we need to be working out ways of encouraging those better.
Wouldn't it be great if they could self-assess their creativity, or do it in a 360 way with their peers and their teachers? Because actually that's real life. That's what happens in the workforce. You don't do an exam at work. You don't know black and white if you're doing well. There's always uncertainty, and you might do brilliantly on one project and be slightly more uncomfortable and do less well on another project. So actually that self-reflection and that self-assessment, in inverted commas, because I don't think schools need any more assessment, could be a really powerful thing to unlock. And I always come back to sort of what I was taught quite early on in business school, which was recruit for attitude and train for skill. And we talk a lot about skills, but those people who have a spark, they should be encouraged in whatever way we can.